we're about to be live. Cool. Yeah. All right. Welcome. Thank you guys for tuning into another episode of Virtual Town Hall, this time episode 6. I'm here with Mrs. Nicole Love-Hendrickson today, and she's running for the chair of the Board of Commissioners. And thank you once again for coming on, Ms. Hendrickson. We're really, really, really grateful to have you. Yeah, and so just a quick introduction. My name is Akil Taraga. I'm the president of Unity and Diversity.
My name is Jalen Pettis. I'm the vice president of Unity and Diversity.
And yeah, so let's just hop right into it. So Ms. Hendrickson, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Akil and Jalen, and all of the members of Unity and Diversity for hosting this platform. Before we went live, I had a great conversation with both Akil and Jalen about the importance of being informed before you go to the polls. So for those of you who are listening and are registered to vote and getting involved in the democratic process, the first step is becoming informed voters. And so I just wanted to applaud the leaders of Unity and Diversity for hosting forums like this and allowing candidates such as myself to partake in sharing my platform and my vision for Gwinnett County. As Akil said, my name is Nicole Love-Hendrickson, and I am a candidate for the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners. I'll talk a little bit about myself and give a brief background of my personal history, as well as what the role of the chairman of the Board of Commissioners is. And then I'll talk briefly about what my platform issues are, why I chose to run for office, and how those of you who are listening can get involved and support me in my effort, and why I'm the best person that is suited for this job. So my background is in social work. I got my master's degree from the University of Georgia with a focus in social work community planning. I am a community organizer by trade. A lot of the work that I've done in this county has been organizing around social issues such as homelessness and food insecurity, substance abuse, mental health, issues impacting our youth in our most vulnerable communities. And that has always been a passion of mine, is just helping people since I was a child. I'm originally from the state of Rhode Island, where I was born and raised. And I moved to Baltimore, Maryland. I was a counselor in Baltimore County Public Schools, and then came to Georgia in 2015 and moved to Gwinnett County and have fell in love with this community and made it my home ever since. I live in Lilburn, Georgia. I have a 6-year-old son who attends Camp Creek Elementary School, and my husband and I have been married for 8 years. And very, very passionate about Gwinnett County and its diversity and all the great things that make this county great, from the schools to our parks to our amenities. But there are some real challenges that we need to address. And I'll tell you why I decided to go into this office. So the chairman of the Board of Commissioners, and I'll start by saying the Board of Commissioners, every county in the state of Georgia has a board. There's 159 counties in the state of Georgia, and they're governed by a Board of Commissioners with the chair leading that Board of Commissioners. So think of a mayor, city council. It's a similar with a county and county chair. So it's kind of a very similar structure where each of the commissioners represent a district around the county, and the chairman serves at large. So no matter where you live in the county, you can vote for the chair of the Board of Commissioners. Very different from the Board of Education, which governs education policy and works directly with the schools. The Board of Commissioners is a separate government entity in that it sets the millage, it sets your tax rate. So if your parents own their homes and they have to pay property taxes, the Board of Commissioners is the one who sets that property tax rate. They also focus on land use issues. So they're the ones who determine what type of businesses come into your community. When a Family Dollar pops up in your community, or a gas station, or a company, or a business, or jobs, the Board of Commissioners is the ones who decides where those businesses are going to go. They also provide all of your services that you get on a day-to-day basis. So when you turn on the water to brush your teeth or take a shower, that is your tax dollars, and that's the Board of Commissioners that's providing those services. They provide services such as your water, public safety. They manage your roads and highways. We make decisions on parks and recreation and businesses and things like that. And everything that you enjoy about this county outside of the schools, the Board of Commissioners has a direct involvement in setting the policies around those things. So the chairman of the board is responsible solely for coming up with the budget. Right now, Gwinnett County has a budget of $1.8 billion, and that funds a lot of different things in the community. And the chairman of the board is the one who works with the county employees to develop that annual budget and adopts that budget, presents it to the other district commissioners. And that's how we decide and determine every year what services you're going to get, how we prioritize that on an annual basis. I decided to run for office. So even before I decided to jump into the race, I worked for the county. So I was a division director. I managed our community outreach effort. I worked on citizen engagement efforts and community education initiatives. I founded the Citizens Academy, the Gwinnett Youth Commission, because I felt that youth needed to have a voice at the table. And we also organized a lot of initiatives and efforts and events and programming to reach our very diverse audiences. So we did a lot of international festivals and education fairs and heritage nights and things like that, so that we can create a welcoming place in our community and in our county. And the reason I decided to run for office, and this would be, and I worked for the person who is in the seat now, she decided she is not running. So it's going to be an open seat. And I said, well, let me throw my name in the hat and see what happens. I feel that there are a lot of things that we can improve in this community. And I think that I can make a difference. I know this county inside and out. I know the residents. I know what the needs are. I talk to people on all levels, including youth. And I just felt that I could best represent the voice of the needs of the people. So the issues that I feel are most important to me are transportation. We need a very robust and comprehensive transit system. Unfortunately, we have a very limited transit scale. If you see buses anywhere in your neighborhood, we don't see them down in this part of the county, because I'm in Lilburn, you guys are too. We don't see Gwinnett Transit buses down here. You know, we don't see any transportation down here. So how can people move around, get to jobs, get to quality of life amenities? How can our youth get to after school activities without relying on a car or their parents? Well, you can't, which means that you're limited in enjoying the amenities that we provide you on a day-to-day basis. Well, that's the case in a lot of places around this county, not just in Lilburn and not just in South Gwinnett. So those are the things that we need to work on, because we have a large youth population, we have a large senior population, and I mean seniors, I mean over 65. And we also have a large population of people who have disabilities and just can't get around. So they're stuck at home. And we need to increase access to transit opportunities. So that was one of the things that I wanted to work on. In addition to workforce development, bringing jobs here, making sure that we bring jobs to areas where people can get to them, and then focusing on building up our next generation. So focusing on what we can do to adequately prepare our youth to lead when we succeed out of that line of leadership, and making sure that we have opportunities to engage our youth in every part of that process. Among other things, voter protection is an area that we need to focus on, police reform, as well as a lot of social justice issues that we're facing in this county with regards to racism and racial reconciliation. Those are things that we should always be mindful of addressing in our local communities. And so that's a little bit about me. I will say we just had a primary election, and I was one of five candidates on the Democratic ticket. And I came in first place with 49% of the vote. My second place opponent had 13% of the vote. However, I did not make enough. You have to have 50% of the vote plus one to avoid a runoff. Unfortunately, I did not get over the 50%, so I am in a runoff. But the good news is my second place opponent has suspended his campaign and he has endorsed me. So you asked, why should people support me in this race and why am I the candidate? Well, my second place challenger dropped out, so I am it. And so he saw the writings on the wall and he saw the need to support me, because 49% is huge. That was over 50,000 voters cast their vote for me. And he recognized that and said that he wanted to also side with the voters in giving the voters the option to have who they chose represent them in this seat. And so here I am, and ready to take on the Republican challenger in November. And also ensuring that we mobilize other local leaders around the county, to make sure that we have really good leaders in these seats. I would be the first African-American to hold this position. I would be the first person, first woman of color, the first young professional, because I know I don't look it, but I am 40 years old. To date, nobody that young has ever held this seat. So it's a lot of history in the making. And the seat has been held by a Republican for 40 years. And so it will also be the first time in 4 decades that it will be flipped to a Democrat.
So just a quick question, I guess, towards party affiliation. Does it really matter? Is it a serious difference between Democrat and Republican when it comes to this job, or is it just something that you gotta have to do?
That's a really good question. And before I got into this race, I would say no, party does not matter in these types of elected races, because you're making decisions on what's best for the county. And really that shouldn't have a partisan lens. Like, I need to make sure we provide and manage and preserve our water. We need to provide public safety. We need to make sure our roads and highways are taken care of. We need to make smart investments in transportation. I mean, this is about how we can efficiently drive tax dollars. And when it comes to that, it really shouldn't be partisan. But I will tell you, now that I've kind of become more familiar going through this process and why having the values of a Democrat, I will tell you, we believe in social justice, equity, fairness for all, and ensuring that when we make decisions and when we prioritize dollars, that we're keeping in mind our most vulnerable communities. Well, this is where Republicans and Democrats differ in our values. And your budget is your value document. So that will highlight how you prioritize issues and funding based on what you value most. And so that is where the partisan lens comes in. And I think that there will be some stark differences between how I would govern versus how even my predecessor is governing, and how she prioritizes dollars and how I would prioritize dollars, because we have 2 different value sets. And usually that is brought into decision making. So that's an excellent question. Okay.
So basically now, because of like Corona, I mean, I presume that the budget is probably, different. It's going to be different. And you talk about having a robust and comprehensive system for transportation, and I really applaud that. But would Corona basically take away from, like, let's say, like a comprehensive system if people are like basically not willing to go, out and like go to these public places and whatnot?
That's another excellent question. And that is the debate of the day. Is now, do we even have to invest in transit if now everybody's teleworking and going to school from home? We're getting people off the roads. Well, we can't think of transportation solely as a means of getting traffic off of the roads, because it still is a conversation about mobility, and people still need to go to doctor's appointments. People still need to go to the grocery store. There still are basic needs that people need in order to get to, and they need transit, be able to access transit. Not only that, but we also have businesses and people coming into the community to do business with Gwinnett County. And a lot of times they're looking at building their business around transit-oriented development, and they want to be along a transit line. And so that helps us spur economic development. So we can bring jobs, we can bring restaurants, we can bring nightlife, we can bring amenities, because nobody wants to put a business out somewhere where people can't access it. unless if you're like Dollar General or something like that. They just pop those up just anywhere. But for the most part, we need to make sure that, you know, businesses that come here have what they need to thrive and succeed so that their employees can get to work on time. Secondly, when we vote in favor of creating this comprehensive transit, we're not saying it's going to be up and running next year. Yeah. It's probably going to be several years from now, and the economy is going to bounce back, and we're going to go right back to where we were before COVID. And so we have to plan ahead. We can't rest on our laurels and say, well, nobody's, you know, at work right now, so let's forget all about transit, because when we bounce right back and we don't have the infrastructure in place, then we will have wished we were working on that. And so we need to still put the infrastructure in place so that when we do bounce back, and we will, that system is already being developed and it's in the works.
Okay, actually, so you're laying a foundation, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question from the community that actually is pretty relevant to transportation. This is a question from Joy Pettis. It said, would MARTA be in the talks in terms of revitalizing transportation?
So that's another excellent question. And I know there's a lot of concerns stemming around MARTA. So the current plan and the referendum that is going to be placed on the November ballot, in order for residents to say, yes, we want to tax ourselves 1%, 1 penny, to be able to pay for heavy rail, you know, because that's the only way we're going to pay for it. And the only way we can increase taxes is through a referendum. You know, the referendum has a clause in there for heavy rail. By state law, MARTA is the only entity that can operate heavy rail. The last plan in 2018 that was voted down, actually last year that was voted down, also had a clause in there for MARTA to operate not only heavy rail, but all of our local transit. This new plan says that it's only going to operate the heavy rail side of it, which is going to be the heavy rail from Atlanta all the way up to Norcross. And then we would expand our local transit, but we wouldn't allow MARTA to operate it. We would still operate it. So Gwinnett County would still operate our own local transit route. So our cemented buses, our rideshare programs, our bus rapid transit that covers main corridors like Satellite Boulevard, and other flex type transportation for like seniors and those with disabilities. So Gwinnett County would still operate and man those transportation initiatives, but MARTA by state law has to be operated by MARTA. Heavy rail has to be operated by MARTA.
Okay. I have a question geared towards traffic and I-85 and the roads as well. One was, how can we decrease traffic, or is there a way to decrease traffic? And two, some of the roads in Gwinnett County are in disrepair. What would, I guess, the commission be doing to improve the roads?
And that's another excellent question. So to answer the first question about traffic and traffic congestion, and a lot of that is going to center around how we get cars off the road. So having multimodal transit options like heavy rail, bus rapid transit, on-demand transit are many ways that we can get cars off of the road. In addition, we could potentially incentivize teleworking and incentivize businesses to allow their employees to work from home, because as we've seen with COVID, and you guys have just mentioned that, is that there is value in working from home and telecommuting because it takes cars off of the road. Traffic also is the direct result of people traveling to jobs. So when people spend more than 30 minutes on the road because they're traveling to a job, into Atlanta, and the majority of our commuters are traveling down to Atlanta, that creates gridlock. So another proposal is to make sure that we're bringing in those same high-paying jobs to take so that people can live close to where they work and they don't have to travel 30 plus minutes to sit in traffic to get to their destination and get to their work destination. The second part of the question with regards to disrepair of our roads and highways, Those are already, so the county pays for road improvements through SPLOST, so Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, covers the improvement of roads and highways. We also share a lot of roads with Georgia DOT and also the federal Department of Transportation. And so depending on which roads you say are in disrepair, that could fall on the state. If it's a state route, like State Route 124 is state, Highway 316 we share with the state, I-85 we share with the state. And then there are some portions that we are solely responsible for, but we pay for road improvements through our SPLOST dollars. And we have long-term land use plans that account for how we pay for and improve our roads. And so that's always going to be, I mean, and you can see night and day when you cross from another county into Gwinnett, how great our roads are, but you're right, there are some that still need improvement. And depending on which roads you're talking about, it could be a state road, it could be, you know, but we have the capacity to leverage now state dollars and federal dollars to help fix our roads, as well as sales tax dollars.
Okay. So just a quick clarification. So if let's say like a family member wanted to go to Atlanta for a job, without driving a car, so would the bus come here and would the bus take him there, or?
So, depending on where they live. So,
Okay.
so if they had a job in Atlanta, now if you live down in Lilburn and it only takes you 25 minutes to get to work,
Yeah.
well, you know, if it takes you 25 minutes to get to work, do you want to drive 20 minutes to get to the MARTA station to then sit? You know what I mean? So it really depends on where you live in the county.
Okay.
However, we are looking at increasing bus routes to connect to the MARTA station, so that you could hop on a bus that will take you to the MARTA state, to the, I don't want to say MARTA station, but to take you to the heavy rail station. It's going to be called something different. Of course, it's operated by MARTA, but it's going to be called something different. And then take you into Atlanta. You may still get to work quicker than you would. So it really depends on how you want to use it. But those options are being discussed right now. So yeah.
Okay, and obviously this is like a long-term thing. Nothing's gonna happen overnight. And
Correct.
yeah, and also one more thing on the topic of traffic congestion. So obviously, when you implement a new idea, not everybody's just gonna flock to it, right? So if you do connect these bus routes, so people can, you know, hopefully not use their cars and just go to work, do you think that would actually increase traffic congestion, because some people would be using those buses while other people would stick to the traditional using the car route?
I think over time we'll start to see the reduction in congestion, because it's a combination of all things that I mentioned. It's not just transit that's going to take cars off the road and ease traffic congestion. It's also couple that with bringing job centers here and making sure that we can create opportunities where people can live closer to where they work. And all of this is going to happen over time. So the easing traffic congestion is not going to happen the minute we get MARTA to Gwinnett, you know, because even people, it's still going to take time for people to even be comfortable with getting on the heavy rail, you know, to even be comfortable with taking it and, you know, using it as their mode of transportation to get to work. So I think that that's going to happen overnight, but I think it's not going to happen overnight. But I think that providing the options and allowing voters to choose, really that's what leaders should always be doing. It's really about providing a service and providing options to all residents, not just, you know, because they have a car. Well, I have a car, I don't need it, I'm voting no. Well, it's not about me. It's about me making sure that we provide options to all residents and constituents of Gwinnett County. So it's about providing the option. And you always use the example with parks. We pay taxes on parks. Some people may never use a park, but you still pay for it, and it's there if you need it, and it's an amenity and it's an economic development asset. So
actually, a point that you brought up bringing businesses closer to Gwinnett, bringing businesses to Gwinnett brings me into another question. How do we incentivize businesses to actually come out to Gwinnett so that most of our citizens are not having to commute downtown just for a job?
Yeah, so through our economic development office and through the Chamber of Commerce, we use incentive packages to attract businesses here. So usually those incentives are by way of tax breaks. So if they come into this county and say, you know, you're bringing in 200 plus jobs that are at least $20 or higher, we will give you a certain amount of annual tax break every year. And so businesses like that, you know, because if they can get a tax break, well, then that adds to their revenue, you know. So that coupled with a lot of other things, there's a lot of bartering that goes on between elected officials. Chambers of commerce are very instrumental in creating those incentive packages that make the company, or that make the county and community very attractive to a business to want to come here. You know, and we tout the fact that we have world-class schools, we have award-winning parks, we have a safe community, you know, so there's a lot of things that by nature, because of what we provide already, businesses are prone to come because they want their employees to live in a community where there's great schools, parks, amenities, but also offering those physical incentives too, so that the companies can thrive. And usually that's by way of offering tax breaks.
So I guess this is a perfect segue to take us into economic development. I got a lot of questions on Gwinnett Place Mall. So obviously it's kind of in a state of limbo right about now as to whether it's going to survive or whether it's not. So the main question was, how can we revitalize Gwinnett Place Mall?
Gwinnett Place Mall is going to be, and is, and continues to remains to be the biggest topic that all candidates are weighing in on right now, because of where it is placed. It's in the center of the county. It sits right in the heart of the county, right off I-85 in Pleasant Hill. And there's a lot of other surrounding businesses and retail and residential that's building around that area, but it's also driving a lot of property values down because it's essentially a dying mall. I mean, there was a dead person found in the mall, 2 years ago. And so Moonbeam, which is the company that owns the mall, is not privy to coming off of his property. I mean, you think about it, you still got big stores, retailers like Macy's that's still operating out of there. You got Beauty Mart, you have another international market that's there. They're paying their rent to be there. And they're also filming movies out of there. Do you guys watch Stranger Things? I love Stranger Things. Well, if you're making money off a dead mall because people are filming movies there and businesses are still going, why do I want to sell it? You know, I'm making money off of it. He's not losing money. And the owners are not really concerned with the surrounding community. So what we need to do is create opportunities to work with the mall owner. You know, and if we are successful and if we do it right and we work with the mall owner to come off the property, and work with a private investor to invest in the area, then we could really create a great mixed use type development or entertainment center or entertainment district, or even bring more jobs to that area. I think the possibilities are endless. I've heard people say, turn it into a cricket stadium or a concert venue, or, you know, there's a lot of ideas that are thrown on the table, but we can't enact any of those ideas until the mall owners come off that property. So we really have to work with them and really stay on top of them about how we can really leverage that place for a true economic asset for our county, because it really is bringing it down. But again, it's private property, and we also have to be mindful of property owners' rights. So we have to keep pressing that issue.
I guess go ahead, Akil.
No, you go ahead, bro.
Okay, sorry. One of the second most asked questions, obviously, is pertaining to COVID. Obviously, the economy across the entire world is taking a hit. Stock market is kind of in a state of disarray right now. We're beginning to climb back, but the case amounts are also increasing at the same time. So we're kind of it's not a very good situation. So main question was, how do we revitalize the economy after COVID-19?
Excellent question, you guys. Yeah, excellent questions. So there are a number of things that we can do. And first and foremost is, as a county, we have to be strategic about our budget and budget decisions that we make. The last thing we want to do is cut core services that are going to impact the lives of residents, who will create an even further burden on government if we cut those services, like jobs, public safety, health and human services, and things like that. So really being smart about our budget and our budget decisions to make sure that we don't create more burdens that COVID has had on our economy, but working with the federal government to draw down additional federal funding to support and stimulate our local businesses. One of the things that the county has already done, and this is something that I want to continue doing and even building upon, is apply for CARES Act funding to be able to create funds for local businesses to create more jobs, to keep their doors open, and make sure that they're continuing to thrive. Because the biggest impact on the economy is businesses that have been closing and shutting their doors, and people who are now left unemployed and now on unemployment, which has put a burden on the state budget. And so we just want to make sure that we're stimulating our local businesses through federal dollars and supporting them, and also incentivizing those who create additional jobs, more, keeping our citizens employed by offering things like access to capital. So dollars to help run their day-to-day businesses. Putting a moratorium on evictions, if they have an inability to pay their rent to their creditors, waiving filing fees, so we want to make sure that we are helping them with their cash flow challenges as well. And also providing some type of access to capital so that they can keep their businesses afloat, because the economy is most hit hardest when people are unemployed and businesses are closing. So that's the last thing we want to do, is shut anything down, but keep them afloat and do our due diligence with our budget and continue providing core services so that we don't exacerbate the problems that are already out there.
Right. And I like
one thing I do want to point out with COVID and the impact of businesses on the government's budget. So, local governments usually our budget comes from property taxes and commercial property taxes. So businesses that pay taxes, homeowners that pay taxes. We also get funds from, the use of, like, when you pay your water bill, those kind of things. Sales tax comes from the businesses. When the businesses close, then that hurts a portion of our budget. Well, luckily for Gwinnett County, unlike other counties, we don't use sales tax for operating. We only use it for building things and buying big ticket items like our fire trucks, and building fire stations and police stations, and building our courthouses and that kind of thing. So when that takes a hit, then we stop building and we stop buying big ticket items. Whereas in Fulton County, a large portion of their budget is paid for by sales tax. So when their businesses were closing, they had to lay people off. They had to shut their doors. They couldn't pay their bills. So it's, it's being being a good steward of your tax dollars, and how you manage your funds is also very important too, to your local economy. Yeah. So we don't have to raise taxes. Fulton County will be raising taxes.
So I like how everything ties in really nicely. For you to have, or for your place you work, or your business to be close to where you're coming from, you need better transportation, and that it all ties in, right? And then you can revitalize the economy, and then if Gwinnett plays small, basically just somehow gets revitalized, the whole, well, everything is proximity is just going to go high. They're going to pay more, and then you're going to get more. So I like that.
That's right.
But under the next generation, I saw that you wanted to maintain safe and healthy community, because I mean, who doesn't? So what extra safety precautions and measures will you be taking on these heavy rail systems to basically like allow people to feel more like at ease, because like especially with my family, and like I mean I like MARTA is always like, you know, it's just like a last resort type thing. So it's like, I know like the heavy rail system is going to be operated by MARTA, but are you going to be implementing any precautions so people feel more at ease?
Yes, public safety is paramount, and I know that the rhetoric out there is that MARTA is unsafe. And yes, while they have instances where there's crime on MARTA stations and subways, and just think of MARTA as a microcosm of the real world, because there's crime in a lot of places, you know, and we tend to package it as, well, it's MARTA, so it must just be crime because it's MARTA. Well, no, it's criminals accessing MARTA, committing crimes. That's not, and you know, it's actually, MARTA is actually a lot safer than it was 10, 20 years ago. You know, they have reduced their crime rate. And so, you know, I think that we also need to revisit how we think about MARTA, because we always think, oh, MARTA is not safe, I don't want to ride that place by myself. But they really did a really good job around creating and putting in more safety measures in the MARTA stations. And we want to beef that up as much as possible too, and ensure that we have, you know, our law enforcement is, you know, we have patrols, we have, you know, a lot of lighting, we have video surveillance, and that we're putting in everything we can to make sure that it's safe for people to ride. And we want people to have confidence in the system that they're paying for and that they're voting to have in this community. And we want to do our part to make sure that that is the case. With regards to that topic area of safe and healthy communities, that also touches on safety in general, and making sure that we have, you know, that people feel safe with law enforcement. Communities of color, typically African-American communities and immigrant communities, have a fear of police. And we also want to forge and build public trust of our law enforcement. So that's also another thing that I want to focus on. And then the environment, and making sure that we are promoting sustainable practices to protect our environment, you know, and encouraging more use of available resources to reduce our carbon footprint in the county. I don't think we do enough of that. In fact, there is not a sustainability committee. There's not a committee that's giving recommendations to the Board of Commissioners on how we can be a green community, promote more healthy, livable spaces, you know, but protect our assets that we have here, our outdoor assets. You know, I think people have a right to grow up in communities where there's not pollution, and that also goes back to the transit conversation. Getting more cars off the road also contributes to healthy, clean air. And so those are conversations that we need to be having. And that those are not always on everybody's radar. And those are things that I want to push under that Safe Health Communities initiative, is making sure that it's safe to live in, but it's also like physically healthy. So.
Just to touch on those points, I guess some of those things would have to kind of require a reallocation of budget funds. So would there be any major, anything major in terms of reallocation or reallocating of funds? Would a specific department be getting more funding than another? Would you cut funding to some things, anything like that?
We just have to look at the budget in its totality and look at where we can reduce wasteful spending. You know, it's hard to take one pot of funding from one department and move it to another, because it really depends on the nature of what that department does and also how they get their funding. So our largest departments that receive the most of our budget dollars are public safety. So police, fire, our corrections, and our sheriff's department, where the jail is. And so you guys are very familiar with the whole language around defund police, right? So what they're saying is essentially is that these local jurisdictions and governments should pull from those budgets and reallocate those resources to other areas that focus more on crime prevention and social services and mental health and after school activities and programs and things like that. While I believe that we need to reimagine public safety, I believe that our police department, our public safety departments need to be supported in because let's not be naive and think that there's no crime, because there is. But I do think that our police departments need to be supported in how they address public safety in our communities. I think we need to invest in training. I think we need to invest in our recruitment and hiring practices to make sure that we hire more people that look like the community that we serve. And we need to do a better job of engaging the public and citizens and building public trust and do more outreach and crime prevention initiatives. And so I'm 100% for supporting and building our police department up and our public safety officials up, but also looking at where we can draw down additional funding that's not tax related, to support investing in mental health and social services and crime prevention efforts. We could leverage funding from private sources and private partners, like foundations and businesses, the federal government. We can draw down federal dollars, which is a lot. We don't do that right now either, because the current administration doesn't believe in garnering federal dollars to pay for a lot of stuff. Other governments do, and it helps to offset the cost. And I think that we need to explore other ways to bring in dollars outside of not cutting, but bringing in more funding.
More money. So how, I guess in the previous interviews that we've had, I guess the last two, we've interviewed Kibo Taylor and Curtis Clemens. They've both kind of expressed some similar interests, some things that you've espoused. So does the Board of Commissioners work with the sheriff and police departments to implement these new programs, or how does that work?
Yeah, so just to give you an idea of the structure, so the sheriff's office is a constitutional office. So like the Board of Commissioners, there's a Board of Commissioners in all 159 counties in the state of Georgia. There's also a sheriff in all 159 counties in the state of Georgia. They are their own elected official. They respond to the people, they respond to the constituents. We don't dictate what they do, they don't dictate what we do. However, what we do is approve and provide their budget. And by law, the Board of Commissioners has to provide the budget for the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office main job is to maintain the jail and provide court security for our courts and serve warrants. So those are the three main things that they do. They also do some additional stuff around community policing and crime prevention and that kind of thing. The police chief, which is totally different than the sheriff, is under the Board of Commissioners. So the Board of Commissioners appoints a police chief and they appoint a police department. So the police department is the one that goes out, they are the ones that do the arresting. So they're in your communities, they're pulling you over, they're arresting you. And when they do arrest you, they take you to the sheriff's office to get booked and processed in. So not every county and community has a police department. We have 9 police departments, because you have to count the cities that also have police departments. So we have Gwinnett County Police, we have the City of Lilburn Police, City of Snellville, Norcross. So there's all these other police city jurisdictions, and those are appointed by either the mayor or city council or the Board of Commissioners. And we have appointed our police chief that manages the Board of Commissioners. And I do foresee working with whoever, whether it's Kibo or Curtis Clemens, to make sure that our police department is in sync with the sheriff's department and that we're operating on one accord, so that there's alignment with how we, police our neighborhoods and promote safety in our community. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that the Board of Commissioners had that much control over public safety in the first place.
Yeah.
So yes, we appoint the fire chief, the fire marshal, and the police chief.
Okay. So when Mr. Clemens was talking about taking extra measures for mental health for like inmates and like the whole department itself, would they have to like contact you and just would you see what I'm trying to say? Like, would they?
So they have to propose that in their budget.
Okay.
So the whole thing about reinvesting in public safety and so they would have to propose a budget to the Board of Commissioners, to the chairman, i.e. me, if I do get that role. So let's say hypothetically, if I'm in that role, either Kibo or Curtis would have one of his team members come present a proposal of a budget, their annual budget, and say, this is what I want, this is how much it's going to cost, this is what I need you to approve. And then we would discuss it with a budget citizens review committee, and we would say yay or nay. If we say yay, we'll give you 100% what you asked for, or yes, we'll give you this portion, or no, altogether, let's invest that money directly to a mental health organization and work with them. So there's a lot of different ways that we can look at that, but they would have to run that by the Board of Commissioners, because they don't provide their own budget. They get that from us.
Got it.
Okay. I just want to kind of, I guess, move to we're on your platform. So the point called Our Next Generation, just get into that a little bit more. So when you say prioritizing investment in literacy, I guess, what are the specifics in terms of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this really goes beyond what's already being offered in the school system. We have early literacy of those from birth to age 5 that are receiving no type of educational support because the state does not mandate pre-K and early child education, which is unfortunate. But there are things that we can do locally to invest in early education, and we could put set-asides and funding for organizations that provide early literacy, because people need a head start. And sometimes in communities that are severely impoverished, and even those of immigrant status whose English is not their first language, we need to make sure that these children are equipped when they start school, and that they're not already behind the 8 ball. Because keep in mind, a literate workforce and a literate community helps to drive our economy up and helps people move up the economic ladder. And so investing on the early side, as well as on the post side from a workforce initiative. So 85%, Gwinnett County Public Schools has an 85% graduation rate. That means 15% of the 180,000 students have not finished high school. And so what are we doing with that population? Where are they? Are they working in low wage jobs? Well, how can we invest to make sure that we're connecting them to workforce opportunities and preparing them for higher paying jobs so that they can contribute to our economy, and they can do so adequately? So it's really touching on both ends. From the early education side as well as the adult side, and focusing on the high school dropouts, because there are things that we can do within our means to address those populations. We can't do much with K through 12. Those that are already in the school system are going to be governed by the Board of Ed. So those are the target populations that we'll be focusing on, as well as investing in after school programming, because right now Gwinnett County has the lowest in the state of Georgia of after school offerings. And so there's a lot of children that are off the clock once they get out of school, if they're not already in some type of extracurricular activities because they're not in sports or their parents can't afford it. Kids are just kind of just hanging out. Well, this is an opportunity for us to leverage this time and bring them into some after school programming that involves enrichment, so that we can continue to keep them engaged, on that successful path. And it's very critical that we target those hours after school. So.
Okay. So speaking of the youth, nowadays, I think the defining factor for all of us is, a number, GPA. So basically, how do we get more involved with what like local government, what you do? How can the big chunk of the grade, especially in schools like Parkview, Berkmark, how can they get involved with what you do?
Excellent. So you guys have already created a model for what other kids can and should be doing, is really creating opportunities and platforms for your peers to learn about the political process, but also becoming informed about the leaders that represent you. Now, just because you cannot vote if you're not of voting age, it doesn't mean that your voice is not and should not be represented in decision making. It absolutely should, and youth should hold their peers, their legislators and elected officials accountable to ensuring that you get things that you want in this community, because you're valued, you live here, and we should take into account when we're making decisions on the future. You are the future, and you should be a part of those conversations. I was the first to start the Youth Commission, and that is the youth arm of the Board of Commissioners. as a decision-making arm, and also a sounding board for us when we were making, for our board to make decisions, that they were always including the youth voice in those decisions. That was a first for us. It has been successful. It's still running, even though I'm no longer with the county. The Youth Commission is still going strong. I think we need to provide more robust opportunities for youth to have their voice heard at the table. I think that we need to create more youth appointments on our boards, our various decision-making boards. We need to make sure that youth are part of that process. Youth can, and you guys are, and I see a lot of youth are already involved in volunteering and sitting on, you know, different boards and parts of clubs and civic groups. I would say don't stop that beyond the school borders. Do that outside of school and the school grounds, because there's so many different opportunities for you to get engaged out beyond the school walls. And it's so important that you do so. And I love opportunities like this that you all have created. It's so creative. It's fascinating. I wish you much success, and I hope that more of these can kind of spur, around the county and even around the state. But I think this is a good start. And, the youth voice is an important one. Youth today are driving a lot of change efforts. The whole racial reconciliation, Black Lives Matter, issues revolving around social justice, you always will see youth at the head of leading those efforts. And so you have a collective voice, and there's power in your collective voice. And so don't ever forget that, because we are listening. We see that youth have to be at the table. Now, we can't ignore it, and continue to press and push and galvanize your peers too, because there's power in numbers and there's power in your voice.
This one's from Randy, and he asks, what can students do to get involved in this youth commission board?
So the Youth Commission, if you go to, and you can Google Gwinnett Youth Commission. Right now, they're already in their the cohort that they're in right now, because it starts in the summer. It starts in June, and then you're in this program for an entire year. So you go through training over the summertime, and then for the school year, and for the duration of the school year, you're attending public meetings, you're attending county events and initiatives and that kind of thing as a youth commissioner for the duration of your school year. The application's open on an annual basis. And so I would presume that for the next cohort, because they're already in the middle of this cohort right now, that application process is going to open up in probably February or March. And I would say be on the lookout for that. Unfortunately, there's only 30 slots. So you have to write a really good application. You have to get a referral from a teacher, community leader. And then of course there's essay questions. And then students are selected from all of the high schools around Gwinnett. And this is not tied to academics. So you don't have to be top performing in your class to be able to be considered. We welcome and want a diversity of thought and perspectives. And so your educational accolades are not what we're looking at. We're looking at somebody who really can demonstrate their passion to serve and be the voice for youth in the county.
It was going to seem like I'm scrambling. I kind of wanted to backtrack for a second. When we were going back to, I guess it was literacy, you introduced another point about the graduation rate is 85%. So there's 15% of students that aren't graduating. Obviously, there are ways to help those students while they're still a part of GCPS. We've got schools like Maxwell and Grayson that are out to provide vocational training. But as soon as you leave GCPS and you're off into the world, there's really not much opportunity. There are no real career opportunities, no vocational training. So what, I guess, can the commission do to provide more career opportunities, vocational training, things of that nature?
Yep, and it's really about creating and promoting access to workforce opportunities that they cannot get in the schools. And it's working with the technical colleges, it's working with the post-secondary schools and educations, as well as private businesses. One of the things that I'm excited about that the current administration is working on is the Business Entrepreneurship Center. And so my thought and my goal and my ideas are to make sure that we open that up for workforce and career training for technical trades for youth, and then also bring in outside companies and various trades to come in to help train young people on how to go after these higher paying jobs. I also want to create apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships in jobs that involve engineering, technology, architecture, all of those areas to give not only the training on the ground, but also in the job training, so those are things that we can do within our means. But the challenge is going to be, how can we make this accessible? Because right now, this entrepreneurship center is going to be in the heart of Lawrenceville, but we need to make sure that we make these types of centers or satellite locations available and accessible all over Gwinnett, all over the county, so that youth can access them all over the place. We just need to do a better job of promoting those opportunities to those who want to get into these technical programs and these trade programs. And I think with a robust partnership and bringing people around the table, bringing community leaders around the table, I think that we can create a comprehensive strategy to make sure that we provide these services all across Gwinnett.
All right. I see we've got 5 minutes left before 5 o'clock, so I'll get close to wrapping up the questions. I guess my last important question is going to be, why should the citizens of Gwinnett vote for you over your Republican opponent?
All right, so right now, Gwinnett County is poised to, it is really poised to go into an entirely new era. So we're the second largest, most populous county in the state of Georgia. We're the most diverse county in the Southeast. Over 70% of our residents represent a racial or ethnic minority, and 20% of our population is foreign born. We have over 100 languages spoken in this community. We're a very new county. About 20% of its residents are native born, with the rest being transplants from other areas. In the direction that we're heading in the county with regards to how do we move beyond race, ethnicity, our social justice, our values, you really need somebody at the helm that can lead not only through those turbulent times, but also has a basic understanding of how government works, that is not afraid to connect with people, that is not afraid of people, that is not afraid of people from all walks of life, that understands that social justice means you have to involve people at the table, and that you're not making decisions with your own agenda, but you're making decisions on behalf of the residents of Gwinnett County. I am a social worker. I understand I know how to listen to issues. I understand what it takes to transition us into the future. I know how government works. I understand social justice issues, and I understand that people are our greatest assets, and I want to leverage the people in helping us get there. My Republican opponent has none of that. My Republican opponent has compared this job to going to war. He has made rhetoric of voter intimidation by saying that if you want Gwinnett County to stay the way it is, then he is the last stop. He thinks that anything that remotely represents change is a bad thing. He doesn't understand the job. He's never worked in public service, and he's never worked in government. So he does not have the experience. He doesn't have the vision. His rhetoric is one that is divisive, one that we see at the national level that mirrors our president. And it's not what we need leading our county. We don't need a national figurehead or the rhetoric of a national figurehead leading our local county as diverse as ours, that is on the brink of change and the brink of the future. So I believe that I am the best candidate to transition us into the future because of what I believe and what my values are. And I'm driven by my core values of ensuring that everybody, deserves basic human and basic rights.
All right. I think that just wrapped the whole thing up beautifully. Guys, just a quick note, if you do have any more questions, feel free to DM us on the UD either Facebook page or on the Instagram page. We will shoot them to Ms. Hendrickson to answer, and we will give you back a response. I know we didn't get to everybody's questions today. Ms. Hendrickson, I really just want to thank you on behalf of the entire UD board for coming on and doing with us, for reaching out to us to do this. We thank you for taking out time of your day to connect with the youth. We really thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Akil and Jalen. And again, I applaud you guys for doing this and hope to see this grow beyond your school. I know what your vision is, and if I can help in any way, let me know.
Thank you
Definitely.
so much, Ms. Hendrickson. And to all our viewers who stayed till the end, thank you so much for tuning in for Virtual Town Hall episode 6. And yeah, thank you, Ms. Hendrickson, once again. Yeah, and I think we are done.
All right.
Cool.
Okay, we're not